What's up, Algebra 1? It is Mr. Knight here, and I'm going to go ahead and, for those absent students, I'm going to help you guys out a bit. I'm going to show you how to divide polynomials by a monomial. And we've already actually gotten a lot of practice with this in the last unit. This is going to be nothing new. It's just an extension of what we've already done, okay? So we need to recall our quotient rule here. So if I'm dividing x to the a power by x to the b power, then to combine those exponents, the a and the b, I get x to the a minus b power. Okay, and that is my quotient rule right there. So there's two steps to doing this. Divide your coefficients, which are these numbers that are in front of our variables and exponents. So we'll divide those like normal. And then we will use the quotient rule to simplify out the variables. Okay? So if we're looking at this right away, we see that we have 20 divided by 24. Now, unfortunately, we are going to get a decimal out of that. So, to avoid that, let's just reduce it and treat it as a fraction. If I have 20 divided by 24, I can reduce that to 5/6. And so I've divided my coefficients, and now let's use our quotient rule with each of these guys right here. And notice I'm using my quotient rule when I am working with just the same variable, right? So, using my quotient rule, I have a to the second power divided by a to the first. That's a to the 2 minus 1, which is just a to the first. B fourth divided by b to the fourth, well, those are the same thing. They just cancel out to 1, so they're gone. And then c to the 6 divided by c to the third. 6 minus 3 is 3, so I get c to the third power. And that guy is what I get when I divide these monomials, right? So we haven't actually gotten to dividing by, we haven't actually divided a polynomial by a monomial. Okay, this is just kind of a warm-up, all right? Let's extend this idea. What if I give you something like this? 40x squared minus 8x divided by 8, like this. Now, similar to how we have like distribution, if I had something like this, so this is basically the same stuff, now I'm multiplying by 8 instead of dividing by 8. When we have something like this, our distributive property tells me to multiply by both terms, right? It's no different with division. I am actually going to divide both of these terms right here by 8. So this is really the same thing as this, 40x squared divided by 8 minus ax divided by 8. You do not need to write it out like this every single time. I am just showing you what the math is doing. Okay, I'm kind of like deconstructing it a little bit. So now, if I go piece by piece with this, 40 divided by 8, that gives me 5. And I'm left with my x squared. Minus 8 divided by 8 is 1. And we're left with just an x. So when I divide 40x squared minus 8x by 8, I end up getting this new binomial right here, and this is my simplified polynomial right there. All right, let's up the ante a little bit. Okay, let's try something like this. Okay, this is more typical of what you would see. Okay, again, we're doing a binomial divided by a polynomial. And again, this time we're really going to have to rely on our quotient rule because before we just had a coefficient to get rid of. Okay? So again, I'm dividing both of these terms up here by negative 5x squared y. So starting with this first one, we have negative 25 divided by negative 5. That gives me a positive 5. And then I use my quotient rule. X to the fourth divided by x to the second. 4 minus 2 gives me x to the second power. And then 3 minus, this would be to the first power. That gives me y to the second power. All right? We move on to the next one. 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. X squared divided by x squared is cancel, so I don't need to include it. It would just be 1, and 1 times 6 is just 6. And then we have y to the fifth divided by y to the first. That gives me y to the fourth. And that guy is simplified. I can't subtract them. They are not like terms, so that would be my simplified answer. Okay, let's try one more. Let's try something like this. All right. This will be our last example. Once again, we're going to divide each of these top terms by 4x squared. Okay? It's the same thing we were doing, except we just have an extra term now. So let's go through the division. 16x to the 6 divided by 4x squared. 16 divided by 4 is 4. X to the 6 divided by x to the second will give me x to the 6 minus 2 with our quotient rule. So I get x to the 4th. Move on to the next one. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. And then we're going to get x to the second power. And now we have 4x squared divided by 4x squared. Now, those are the same exact thing. So, because you have something divided by something, or something divided by itself, that always equals 1, so we could just put plus 1. Now, maybe you're not satisfied with that. 4x squared divided by 4x squared. Let's go through the math with it. 4 divided by 4 is 1. X squared divided by x squared gives me, using the quotient rule, x to the 0 power. And x to the 0 power is the same thing as 1. And since they're next to each other, 1 times 1 is 1. So either way, I get this regardless. Okay? And that would be a simplified answer. And that is how you divide polynomials by monomial.